And now we bring in our YouTube audience, and we're live, Andrew, for the first time. Welcome to the Eh-Ducated Fan. My name is Brandon, and I am joined here by your co-host, my best friend, Andrew Moore. My guy, how are you doing?
Man, I'm fired up. This is going to be, first of all, it's good to see you again.
Hey.
And welcome back to all the listeners after a little bit of time off. But man, I'm so fired up about this free agency. It is going to be absolutely incredible. We're going to see moves that I don't even think really any of us is going to be able to predict. And we've just seen over the past couple of weeks the insane amount of cuts that have happened around the NFL. It's going to be a buyer's market for the teams, especially that have a lot of cap space. There's going to be a lot of good players out there available. And we know what Chris Ballard and the Colts mantra has been. They haven't been huge spenders in free agency. They haven't signed bad contracts, and that's what puts them in this good position. So I'm excited to see what the Colts do. I'm excited to see what happens around the NFL. And I'm excited to be back with you, brother.
Absolutely. Today we're going to talk a little free agency. That goes for the Colts, the league. Talk about some things that have already happened, things we think are going to happen, as well as some potential rule changes. But first, for those listeners who are just joining us now for Season 2 for the first time, just want to throw out a thank you for joining us. We had a big surge of Twitter followers recently. We'd like for you all to, click the like and the subscribe and the notification button for next time we go live and every time we go live. But first, we do want to tell you kind of what we're about. This is the Eh-Ducated Fan. The is like a kind of, because that's me. I'm a very passionate Colts fan. I know a lot about the team. I know a lot about the NFL, but not to the degree Andrew does, so he's got to take me down a peg every once in a while, although it is becoming more frequent that I am educating him. And we're here to educate you. Everybody wants to listen. Andrew definitely more technical knowledge than me in regards to the game of football and the minute details of things like free agency, which I know a lot more about this year going into our second season. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Andrew, any comments?
Yeah, man, I'm excited for this season. We're a year into the Educated Fan. We welcome all the new listeners that are here, and I think it's going to be a great season, not only for us as podcasts, but for the Colts. So I'm excited. I think you nailed it right on the head. You're more passionate. Sometimes I got to bring you in a little bit and kind of do more of the analyzing here, but hey, it's a good balance, and I love the debates we get into. So let's talk about free agency.
Let's do it. Shout out Skylar. Hey, bud. Thanks for being in the comments there. So free agency, Andrew, the Colts. It feels like we have a large need. Now, obviously, free agency is not the only way to address these needs, but we're going to go over those needs. But first, Andrew, it looks like the Colts are going to have around $47 million in cap space. But do they really? Is a question we'll ask. What do you mean by that, Andrew? What do you mean? So, do they really?
They're going to have $47 million that they can spend this year. However, when you're thinking about that $47 million, we can't just go out and go sign a wide receiver for $20 million a year. You got to kind of think ahead. So while the cap is going to be going up in the future because of the huge TV deal that's about to hopefully come out soon for the NFL.
Right.
You also got to think of the guys that are already on the roster that are going to have big time extensions. I mean, Darius Leonard, that extension I would guess is probably going to come sometime this summer, and he's probably going to reset the linebacker market. Braden Smith, his contract will be up after this season. The Colts want to keep him, as Braden Smith has ascended into a very, very good right tackle in this league. And then the best offensive lineman in the entire NFL, Quentin Nelson. The Colts don't have to extend him this year. They've still got his fifth-year option down the line. But I can almost guarantee Quentin Nelson will probably get tackle money as well. So he's another huge contract. Sure. So the Colts, and I know the Colts are aware of that, but when fans look at that $47 million, that's $47 million for this year, and that's not counting in those extensions that are going to be coming down the line and that are going to take up a good chunk of our cap space.
Agreed. Now, the Colts seem to be, especially with Chris Ballard and his team, we seem to be real good. Every year it feels like the Colts have a lot of space. Like $47 million. I don't know if anybody knows in relevance to other teams how much that is, but we're not too bad. There's other teams with as much as us, but
that's fourth in the league. We're fourth in the league with 47, and that's factoring in Carson Wentz's contract that will be absorbing the first day of the league year when that trade is official.
Carson Wentz going to wear 10?
I'm going to go 2.
2?
I'm going to go 2.
Isn't Hot Rod, don't Rodrigo or Hot Rod wear 2?
Hot Rod's 3.
Imagine the punter looking at Carson Wentz. Rodrigo, which, by the way, we love him. But imagine the punter. Rigoberto, sorry. Looking at Carson Wentz going, nah, I'm not giving up my number. The punter.
Rigo's 8. He was
I thought he was 2.
And then he moved to 8.
When did he move to 8?
A couple years ago.
Shit. Well, there we go. Brandon getting a little educated. But let's talk about some free agents. Andrew, notable free agents this year on the Colts before we dig into, these. Obviously, everybody's like, let's sign this person. Let's sign that person. Well, we got some people we got to worry about first here, like Jacoby Brissett. Likely a free agent and likely signing elsewhere. Do you think Jacoby starts anywhere else? Do you think anywhere's like, I think I can make this guy fit our system? I bet Sean Payton could make Jacoby Brissett work.
I don't know if he really...
I don't think he would.
I mean, it's possible. Jacoby Brissett, if he's your starting quarterback, I've said this before, if Jacoby Brissett is your starting quarterback, you're going probably 8-8 is your ceiling, like he did. And he went 7-9 with us that in 2019. So he's a fantastic backup quarterback. You're not going to win very many games, and you're not going to get to where you want to go with Jacoby Brissett as your starter. It's just plain and simple. Another
super important, in my opinion, free agent that we maybe re-sign, the Raven Clark. Andrew, what do you think?
Raven Clark cannot play football. We're moving on.
Okay, Raven Clark gone. An interesting one that we're not going to cover in positions here, Andrew. Malik Hooker, you got to think after the year Blackman had, we're not re-signing Malik Hooker.
No, and it's a shame. I mean, Malik Hooker was Chris Ballard's first ever draft pick.
A lot of potential.
But with the ascension of Julian Blackman, I think Malik Hooker will find more playing time elsewhere and a bigger contract elsewhere than he will in Indianapolis.
And a couple more here. Notable Marlon Mack, Anthony Walker Jr. Both probably gone.
I love Marlon Mack, and I was clamoring all
Everybody
season
loves Marlon Mack.
For the Colts to re-sign Marlon Mack, and it's just unfortunate. And with the ascension of Jonathan Taylor,
number 3 in rushing.
Number 3 in rushing, and he's probably going to be a top 5 back in the league this year.
Oh yeah,
and unless Marlon Mack wants to come back on a very small, like a veteran minimum 1 year prove it deal, I think I've heard that Philadelphia has been kind of interested in Marlon Mack. He could go and hook up with Dick Sirianni. So yeah. I want Marlon. I selfishly, I'd love to have Marlon Mack back, but I want Marlon Mack to go somewhere where he can excel and get paid like he's deserved.
Okay. I agree. Moving along here, Andrew. Some holes the Colts are going to have this offseason. And all these positions, again, I already said it, can be addressed by the draft as well. It doesn't have to be free agency. It likely won't be free agency for most of these, but we got to talk about these positions, and I'll just go ahead and list them out, Andrew, and I want to know what you think is order of importance. But we got left tackle, wide receiver, edge, cornerback, and apparently tight end. Everybody's talking about tight end. You listed tight end. Everybody else talking about the Colts is talking about tight end. I think we're okay at tight end. I think Mo Alley-Cox and Jack Doyle, and I don't know what Trey Burton's deal is. I think we're fine. But apparently everybody wants to talk about tight end. Where do you rank these positions in order of importance?
So in order of importance, I mean, it just kind of depends who who is already on the roster. At this point, you would have to say that left tackle and edge are 1 and 2. And honestly, you can flip those. For edge, Justin Houston is a free agent. Danico Autry is a free agent. Al-Quadin Muhammad's a free agent. Those are your 3 guys that played the most snaps at defensive end last year. And that leaves Kamoko Toure, who, while we have a lot of hope and we think he's got a lot of potential, after his injury, he was just never the same. He didn't come back with that level that we thought he was. So again, it could be this year once his ankle gets healthier, but we'd have to see. Ben Bandigu was a healthy scratch last year for multiple games, so that kind of shows you what the Colts think of him right now. And then you go to the left tackle position when you have Carson Wentz coming in, and while Carson Wentz is incredibly athletic, one of the biggest things that hurt Carson Wentz last year was the Eagles' offensive line was just in shambles. And when you lose a guy like Anthony Costanzo, who's one of the most underrated guys in the league, and someone that the Colts relied upon to go out there and block those rushers one-on-one, it's a big hole. And it's something that can't be taken lightly. And when Anthony Costanzo wasn't in the lineup last year, you noticed it. You noticed that the Colts struggled. So I think that has to be taken into. Now, the Colts on these fronts, incredibly lucky because there's a lot of left tackles out there, not only in free agency, but this draft class is jammed packed with left tackle, with just tackle in general talent. And then as far as edge goes, because the cap has gone down so much this year, there's a lot of young edge rushers out there, and not a single edge rusher was tagged this year, which I found very interesting. There's just a very deep class, and we'll talk about who we think our best options are. But at left tackle and edge, those are probably the 2 most important. And there's going to be a lot of options there for the Colts. And I think that puts Chris Ballard and company in a really good spot.
Yeah, I agree. Left tackle is obviously a huge one. I think wide receiver, free agency wise, is going to be most important because, like you said, the draft is loaded with tackles, left tackles. I think there's some good, edge rushers going to be in the draft this year. But I do think, I would say edge is probably going to be second most important free agency wise. I think there's some serious talent out there at wide receiver this year. I mean, the list of free agents and wide receiver is crazy, and some of the names on there would really shock you. But this is the time of year, Andrew, and we'll talk about this when we get over to NFL news. This time of year, a lot of guys who are going to cost a certain amount of money, teams are starting to let go because, one, we have a reduced salary cap this year. It was supposed to be, teams thought it was going to be, 208, 205, and it's 182 and some change?
Yeah, I thought maybe like 198 to 208, and it's going to be 182.5.
Yeah, so you're going to have a lot of teams right now, and it's still happening, and I think it can still happen through Sunday, you're going to start seeing people and continue to see people just released. Names you wouldn't expect. J.J. Watt is a person who was released because of cap issues, and I think he just wanted to be gone. But we'll get to that later. But let's start out with left tackle, Andrew. Let's talk about guys that are available, guys we like, or maybe even see the Colts signing. Or for me, honestly, I just kind of threw out a few big names in my list. So I don't know about you, but I'll let you start it off. What do you think?
So left tackle, my preference is actually for left tackle. I'd honestly rather go through the draft, and here's why. So there are quite a few good left tackles, especially in recent days. That let me get there. So there are some good left tackles out there because of cuts and free agency. But like I was talking about, the left tackle group in this draft is very, very deep, and it's somewhere that the Colts can attack. Either at 21 where they're picking now, or if they trade back, because there's going to be some quality left tackles there in the second round. And another thing is, when, like I talked about it earlier, you're going to have to pay Quentin Nelson. You're going to have to pay Braden Smith. Ryan Kelly has already been paid and now is the highest paid center in the league. If you go out and spend $20 million a year on a left tackle, you're going to have a lot of salary cap put into the offensive line. And that salary cap, if you draft a solid left tackle, you can use that money elsewhere to help bolster this team that's and Chris Ballard and Frank Reich want to make a run.
Mhm.
So that's why I don't rule out them signing a left tackle, but I think maybe Chris Ballard could be thinking more towards the draft if he has to pay top money for one of these left tackles or one of these tackles that's out there right now.
Sure. Andrew, real quick, sorry to cut you off, but we do have a question in regards to left tackle. And trades are a part of free agency in a manner. Tyler Dietering, our boy, the Dolphins fan, listening in live. Welcome, bud. Wondering if the Colts may be in play for an Orlando Brown trade at left tackle.
So what I'm hearing and what I've read today is that the Ravens are talking to 6 teams about Orlando Brown. Colts are not one of them. It's going to cost quite a bit of draft capital to get Orlando Brown. And not only that, once the trade is done, he's going to want a new deal. And that's again, that kind of speaks to the Colts already have traded for Carson Wentz and given up a couple picks there. Chris Ballard, he loves them picks. So he's going to try to keep as many picks as possible. And that's why I see maybe them going through the draft rather than making a trade for a left tackle.
Yeah. He's not going to want to give up much more draft capital. I think we're already going to trade back to get some more picks back. That's very likely. Everybody pretty much agrees with that. Also, shout out Corey, my little nephew. Bradley says hello, boys. Anywho, names on your list, Andrew. I believe that's where we left off.
Yeah, so I'm going to name off four names here, and if I say some of yours, we can kind of just give our opinion on them. Yeah. Let's start out with the big one, Trent Williams. Trent Williams is the top left tackle in this free agency class. He's also going to require top left tackle money, and that's going to be $20 million a year. And I see especially Pro Football Focus. They love to put Trent Williams with the Colts because they love to see him and Quentin Nelson next to each other. Yeah, if you're doing a fantasy team on Madden, absolutely. Mm-hmm. This is real life, and it's just not feasible. And Chris Ballard's not going to put out that kind of money for him.
Absolutely, it's top tier money, and he's a top tier left tackle. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong; the man
absolutely.
is worth. He just left the Washington football team not too long ago. Won it out of there, ends up with the Niners. I personally think that the Niners end up re-signing him, but I mean, you can't sit here and say if the stars all align, you wouldn't like to see Trent Williams at left tackle for the Colts. I mean, we could hope, but he's going to command the big money. We're not going to pay the big money. Part of the reason, too, some of these guys are still unrestricted free agents is with the reduced salary cap this year, teams expected, they didn't see COVID coming for a long time. Deals that were structured a year and a half ago, they expected the cap to be up this year. So what a lot of teams we're seeing doing are they're letting these free agents become unrestricted free agents starting Monday because they're letting them test the market. The Colts are doing the same thing. They're letting them test it, see what the value is, and then they're going to turn around and go, oh, well, darn, I guess I'm not worth as much as I thought. And it's not even that. It's just there's not enough room. So Trent Williams, I think, is one of those guys. I don't think San Francisco lets him go after just a year. And it's kind of going to be he gets to see what other teams are offering him, and he goes, oh, I guess I might as well stick with a team who legitimately, if they find, in my opinion, a better quarterback, they're a Super Bowl contender. Another guy that I just don't think will happen, I think he's re-signed by his team, but a hell of a tackle. Villanueva, Pittsburgh.
Yeah. He's shown some decline over the past couple years, but he's very reliable. I don't think he's missed a start in quite some time. But I don't know if the Steelers are going to have the cap space to retain him, but he's certainly an option. I think he's going to get good money. Definitely not on Trent Williams level.
Sure.
But it's an option. If I had to go with a left tackle option in free agency that not only is going to be good probably financially, but also as a stud, it's Riley Reif, who was just released by the Minnesota Vikings. And I think last year, in over 500 pass blocking snaps, I think he gave up 1 sack. I mean, the dude's a stud. He was a team captain for the Vikings. He's a great teammate. Obviously, that's something that bodes well in Indianapolis. And that's someone that I could see if some of the others, because I mean, Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz were both released from the Chiefs today. Mitchell Schwartz especially is going to command pretty big money because he's an all-pro right tackle. Eric Fisher, we'll see, because he's coming off that Achilles injury, so I don't know really what the market's going to be for him. But Riley Reif, if the Colts were able to get him and it wasn't going to break the bank, I'd absolutely love it. Otherwise, my preference would be going through the draft to find our next left tackle. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Colts address that, because getting a quality left tackle is going to tremendously help Carson Wentz get to the level that the Colts and Frank Reich want him to be at.
Eric Fisher from the Chiefs, Andrew, is another name that, like you just said, was released today. That immediately people are, Colts fans online are, sign Eric Fisher, sign Eric Fisher. Well, first of all, the man's going to cost some money, even after this Achilles injury that just happened in January. That man's not playing football for the first half of the season, if I know anything. Look at Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was out for...
There's no guarantee. Yeah, a year. There's no guarantee that Eric Fisher will be playing football next year, because who knows the extent of the injury? Was it a complete rupture of the Achilles? Was it just a slight tear? A lot of that, the difference in that can really be a huge difference in when he comes and plays. So I don't really think that the Colts want to leave that up to chance. That's just not what they do.
That's not a Chris Ballard move, just plain and simple. Here's a fun one, Andrew. You're just going to laugh at me. Super Bowl champion Joe Haeg.
Hey, Joe Haeg would be a good swing tackle, a good backup depth tackle, because you got to remember the Colts also need some offensive line depth that was really tested last year, and so if Joe Haeg wanted to come back to Indianapolis and maybe have a chance to start, I'd be all for it. I really like Joe Haeg in a Colts uniform.
Last thing we'll say on tackle, Andrew, and this is perfect, listener Thomas Satherwaite. Sorry if I butchered that, pal. Welcome. Don't know who you are. You listen. I love it. He says Indy's going to need the best left tackle available to help Carson. I don't necessarily agree with that statement, and I almost made a comment earlier about what I thought about left tackle in regards to the importance of that position in free agency. We don't need the best. Okay, Carson Wentz has got from left guard to right tackle one of the best lines in the league. Okay, Frank Reich is creative enough, inventive enough to use Carson Wentz's legs to make up for the lack of left tackle. Okay, so even if we don't sign the best, if we get a rookie who's going to start day one, I mean, we can make that work. Frank Reich's going to make it work. I think one hole at the tackle position is, and maybe you disagree or agree, Andrew, but I think one hole on the offensive line, while very important, okay, but if you have a guy with legs, unlike we had with Phil, I think that's something that can be made up for in play calling.
So I don't think that Carson Wentz necessarily needs the best left tackle, and I do agree. Frank Reich, I think, will scheme things open and make sure Carson Wentz is getting the ball out of his hands very quickly. But I do think they need a quality left tackle. You can't just put in anybody. As seen last year, yes, Phillip Rivers was a statue in the pocket, but when you had Raven Clark or Chaz Green in there, you saw how bad it hurt the offensive line. And
just
you also
need somebody better than them.
And you also got to think too that Anthony Costanzo wasn't just a pass blocker. He was somebody that was tremendous in the run game. And if the Colts are want to have Jonathan Taylor have the success, we can't have a gigantic hole at left tackle either. We need to have somebody that's good in the run game as well to help open those holes for Jonathan Taylor, Naheem Hines, guys all over the field, so that Carson Wentz has as many options as he can to kind of regain that confidence, try to regain that form, and really become the guy that the Colts want him to become. So not necessarily the top left tackle on the market, but I do think that it has to be somebody that the Colts are confident in, and not just we can bring anybody off the street, because if they think that, they're going to have a huge wake-up call come September.
Yeah. There we go. Hey, listen, quick break here. I am new to this streaming thing. I'm learning all sorts of new stuff. So middle of my sentence here, I was like, oh, look, I fixed this. So Anywho, Andrew, a fan. I'm just going to say a fan. Ray, no, I'm not saying that. If you can look in the comments yourself. This guy's asking what your dream free agency is. I think we should circle back to that at the end and maybe just narrow that down to one person. So remind me, because I will forget. If you guys need to know anything about me, it's that I'll forget. Dream free agency signing. I think we can just narrow that down to one and not obviously every single one. Wide receiver?
It's going to wide receiver.
Receiver.
It's interesting. You said there's a lot in there, and yep, that's who I want the Colts to sign. I want T.Y. Hilton back, and here's why. When you look at the tape, you really dive into the tape. I mean, if there's going to be a lot of people out there that look at his stats and say, oh, he's regressing. But when you look at the tape, the Colts used him in a lot of situations where he was getting other guys open. Couple that with Phillip Rivers didn't really like to chuck it down, do the certain plays. He definitely opened up the offense, but it's not what we're used to seeing with T.Y. Hilton and when Andrew Luck would throw it deep in that beautiful connection. T.Y. Hilton still has something left in the tank. He's 31 years old. And when you get toward the end of last year, when they started opening things up and we're starting to look T.Y.'s way more, I mean, he had huge games again against the Texans. He had, I think, 5 or 6 touchdowns to end the year. So T.Y. Hilton is definitely someone that I would love the Colts to bring back. This is the kind of the fire that the Colts are going to play with, though, because they're going to let T.Y. Hilton go out there and they're going to let him test the market. And with Chris Godwin being franchise tagged, Allen Robinson, those 2 top guys, you're going to have more suitors for T.Y. Hilton. So sure. It's definitely going to come down to money. And the Colts love him. The Colts want to bring him back. At the same time, I think it's going to be if it can work out numbers wise. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I would love to see T.Y. back. I don't even think you mentioned, Andrew, the supreme leadership that T.Y. Hilton brings to this team. And
absolutely,
I think a T.Y. Hilton is super important to the success of Carson Wentz. And I'm the guys over at 1% Better mentioned the same thing. I can't take total claim of that, but Carson Wentz is going to need somebody besides second-year Michael Pittman Jr. and, questionable Paris Campbell.
Paris Campbell that can't stay healthy.
Questionable Paris Campbell. He needs a guy like a T.Y. Hilton that he can just rely on. Jack Doyle is going to play a role like that, I think. But there are other guys out there, Andrew, that fit the T.Y. style. I think our biggest need in a play style wise at wide receiver is a guy that's going to get vertical and that then can get up and down, climb the ladder, they say. I think that's going to be super important to this team. Michael Pittman Jr. could be that guy, but he's just so good. Like, I don't want to he's so good at the crossing routes and stuff too, but we need a guy who's just, you go, well, I can throw the ball down the field to him no matter what. He'll go up and get it. Yep. So John Brown, I think, who's recently released, is going, or at least we know he's going to be free agent. John Brown is a guy. If we don't sign Ty, I think John Brown's going to be good value, cost wise, to replace the style of receiver Ty is. I think that's a really good one. Some notable free agents, Andrew, though, aside from him, AJ Green, injury prone. Emmanuel Sanders. That's another guy that could fit a T.Y. role, but he's getting up there in age too, I think. So Golden Tate, I don't know about that. What do you think about those 3 guys? And quick, because I've got so many wide receivers written down, and I do have 3 starred that I love.
Yeah. John Brown I really like.
John Brown's one of my stars.
Something I think we need to keep track of, because the Colts are going to be keeping track of this too. If the Colts sign a player that was cut, it will not factor against them in the compensatory pick formula. If they sign a guy that's just full out free agent, that does count a little bit against them. And when you
explain that, Andrew, compensatory pick.
So compensatory pick is when starting in the third round, if teams lose a player, then he goes off to another team and has a huge season and has great value, then they get a pick back in return. It's kind of like it doesn't leave the team completely hanging if a player goes and signs somewhere else. And that starts in the third round. The Colts didn't have any this year because they didn't really lose any free agents besides Eric Ebron, but they also got Phillip Rivers. So if you lose a free agent, but you gained another one back and he provides great value, that will count against you in the compensatory pick formula.
It's a very complicated thing.
It is, but
it's very confusing.
It's something that the Colts, especially with how much they value draft picks, it's something they're really paying attention to. So if you sign a guy that was cut like John Brown, it's not going to count against you if you sign a guy like you said, AJ Green. My wide receivers, I think the Colts, if they do, they're not going to get one of the top guys. They're going to look for more of the mid-level guys. It's like John Brown, Curtis Samuel. I really like Curtis Samuel.
You son of a bitch. You stole that from me and you know it. You stole Curtis Samuel from me. I talked about him the other day. You're a prick.
No, I really like Curtis Samuel. I think he's going to be a little bit more expensive than what the Colts want to pay for him.
I think he's going to cost.
So I don't think that's going to be an option. Now, one that I'm not sure on, Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones, I think, could play a good role in Indianapolis, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the Colts would, if he's the type of guy they want. I do. Think
he is a guy that can go up and get the ball, though. He fits the role we need.
He is. I really liked your point how T.Y. Hilton would be such a help to Carson Wentz, and it immediately made me think, it's obviously not the same situation, but it made me think of Reggie Wayne and Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was coming into the league and trying to establish himself, and Reggie was like, you know what, if you're ever in trouble, find me, throw me the ball. And I think that's someone that T.Y. Hilton can be for Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz coming in, he needs to get his confidence back up. He needs to kind of just be Carson again and not have to carry the team on his back. T.Y. is someone that you can, if you're in a pinch, and we saw Phillip Rivers start to do it at the end of last year. Look for T.Y. when you're in trouble and good things happen. So I think that's kind of my view on wide receivers. Definitely wide receiver, I think, will be a target of the Colts, maybe second and third round of the draft. But if we can't re-sign T.Y., I think my favorite out of those three would be John Brown.
I have a question. If Michael Pittman Jr. just does not have a good year, are you – I thought about today at the gym. Does Chris Ballard stink at evaluating wide receivers? If John Brown doesn't – or I'm sorry, if T.Y. – what am I trying to say? Michael Pittman Jr., if he just burns out, are we this is something that Chris Ballard hasn't addressed very well, in my opinion, thus far, aside from MPJ and maybe Paris Campbell. But does Chris Ballard stink at evaluating wide receivers?
See, we'll have to see. I don't know if he stinks because he was in Kansas City when they took Tyreek Hill. He's got some good point. Some good picks.
Look at that knowledge. Receiver. Real quick, there's Andrew's knowledge. There's just some things he's got over me, and that's so deep. There's no way I would have known that.
I think with Chris Ballard, and I'm going to talk about Paris Campbell specifically. Paris Campbell's got talent. We saw it at Ohio State, and we've seen flashes of it at the Colts. He's just had and honestly, it's bad luck. I wouldn't even call Paris Campbell injury prone. That second game of the year, he gets cracked on the knee with a helmet. Nothing you can do there. Michael Pittman Jr., I think, would have had an even bigger year this year if he wouldn't have had that compartment syndrome in his leg, which is a freak accident thing too.
Oh yeah. So, I have nothing against him for that.
I wouldn't say that Chris Ballard is bad at evaluating wide receivers, but I also wouldn't say that he is the best evaluator at wide receivers. I do think Michael Pittman Jr. can turn into a number one wide receiver. Okay. I think Paris Campbell could be an incredible threat. It's just too early to tell, and they got to get some luck on their side too.
Here's a couple more that I'm just not interested in. I'll give you my last star after that, Andrew, because Curtis Samuel is my number one star.
Hey, we'll credit you for that.
Rashad Perryman. This one's interesting to me because he just went to the Jets. I think we talked last year. I've got a notepad with my notes on it. Everybody chill out. We talked last year about the receiving core in Tampa Bay, and I was like, I think Bashad Perriman's a sneaky good wide receiver that's just buried below a Chris Godwin and a Mike Evans. But he just went to the Jets. Who knows what they do with him? Juju, no thank you. No thanks. And who knows? The Steelers might re-sign him, but he did just stream on Twitch on Fortnite, and he was playing with a football player and that was in a Miami jersey.
Interesting.
Huh.
Juju and
Kenny
Tua.
Golladay.
We'll see.
Kenny Golladay, another Detroit Lion, another guy that can be that reliable, go get it. Here's one that
I think Kenny Golladay, though, is going to be top wide receiver.
Yeah, it's going to be big money.
So
now, here's one that I'm not sure about
Colts.
money. Here's one within the division, Andrew. Here's one I'm not hearing anybody talk about except for one other person. I was like, oh, this is the one. Corey Davis.
Corey
Frickin' Davis, my guy. An absolute animal of a man. The only person more manly on that football team last year than Corey Davis was A.J. Brown. And they were, I think the second time we played them, they just ate us up. Both of them. Corey Davis is an absolute animal, and I would love to see him on our team.
He's an incredible athlete, and I think Corey Davis is somebody that is a wide receiver that at that mid-level type money that Chris Ballard is looking for. So that's definitely an option. I think that the Colts will only sign one free agent wide receiver, though. If it's not going to be T.Y., then I think it's going to be either John Brown or Corey Davis, someone that is a veteran, but can also provide kind of like a security blanket or a huge trait for Carson Wentz.
Okay. That's fine. I think we could re-sign T.Y. and sign a free agent. I don't know what kind of value T.Y. is going to get. I just don't know what he's going to get from other teams, but we'll see. Let's move it along to edge, Andrew. Got a little music in here. Let's talk about the edge rush. Who do you think, and this one I struggled with. Honest to God, the only people I wrote down I laughed at, and I don't think it's a possibility at all. So who's a serious potential edge rusher for you that could come to the Colts in free agency?
This edge rushing class it's huge, phenomenal. There's a lot of, especially young guys, that I think would fit great with the Colts. We're going to start out with a guy that I think is the most realistic signing, and a guy that's probably not heard about or talked about often is Romeo Okwara from Detroit. He had 10 sacks last year. He's a guy that can win with power. He's a guy that can win with speed, and he's a guy that would fit perfectly in that left end position in that Matt Eberflus defense. So I would think him, and then another guy that I'm really high on. He's coming off an injury, but Bud Dupree. Bud Dupree is a phenomenal athlete. He has incredible get off. He tore his ACL last year. We were watching that game when the Steelers dropped to the Washington football team. So obviously that's going to have to come into play, but Bud Dupree can eat, and he's very fast edge rusher. And I
isn't
think
isn't he a linebacker though? Technically,
he played linebacker in the Steelers 3-4. But if
he needs to go put his hand in the ground or put his hand in the dirt, he can do it.
I think you could do that. My third one is Carl Lawson. Carl Lawson from the Bengals, who he only had 5.5 sacks last year for the Bengals, but he was one of the top edge rushers in the league in quarterback hits and quarterback hurries last year. You know who could probably fix that and help him get there? Robert Mathis on the Colts coaching staff. So it'll be interesting to see.
Extremely active on Twitter.
Right. So those are my top three, and you could go down the list. There's so many. I mean, I didn't even mention like Shaq Barrett, Yannick Ngakoue.
Not going to happen, Shaq Barrett.
No, it's not going to happen.
He's not going to leave that team. Andrew, Yannick.
There's so many options.
I have Yannick on my list of unlikely. I'm not sure that Yannick is a character fit for the Colts. Now, I don't have any evidence of that, like of specific, poor character citations, we'll call it. But the guy's been on what now? 3 teams in a year and a half?
Yeah, he was on the Jags. He wanted out of Jacksonville. Everybody wants out of Jacksonville. Got traded to the Vikings. And then I think the Vikings traded him to the Ravens. I don't think it was anything character-wise or like he was complaining about playing time. I just think it was a move that the Vikings were looking to make. And I think he played very well when he was with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, very good.
So, now, who are your fits at edge besides Yannick Ngakoue?
I don't think this is a fit. I just think everybody's talking about it, and I want to shut it down. Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely
See
not.
ya. No, thank you. And then what about Okafor?
Wasn't there an aggressive amount of money for a guy that got 0 sacks last year? I am out on Jadeveon Clowney. I've been out on him since last year when he was saying he needed $20 million.
Listen, there was a year where, a year ago you could say, oh yeah, Jadeveon Clowney's numbers are down because, he demands a double team. So that gives his teammates an opportunity to do better. 0 sacks though. That's
0 sacks.
0. 0. Okafor. Kansas City?
Maybe. I think he
wasn't there somebody from Detroit too recently?
Romeo Okwaro's from Detroit.
Thank you. Okay.
The guy I was talking about. Yeah. Okafor, maybe. I think if the Colts are going to address edge, it's going to be in free agency though, because this draft class, it's got a couple guys at the top that I think can make an impact, but then I think there's a big drop off at the edge position. So. And Chris Ballard, he absolutely loves the trenches, and he's going to build from within. And you see it every year. So Danico Autry was a free agent. Jabal Sheard, Justin Houston. Chris Ballard makes moves at defensive end. So I definitely think that a move at edge, especially one of the top guys, could very well happen this year.
All right, who's Rondale Moore? Rondale Moore.
Wide receiver at Purdue. He could be a second-round pick.
Listen here, folks. We're talking about free agency, okay? Give me a minute. I can't read every comment. This is ridiculous. You're getting called Chris Collinsworth in here.
I'm Chris Collinsworth.
Chris, yeah, you gave me a... Now, here's a guy. Chris is over here talking smack about the Colts missing out on Matt Stafford. The Rams, who highly overpaid for Matt Stafford. Good luck this year. Anywho, let's move it along. What do we got next? We got cornerback.
Cornerback.
Some people say Chris Ballard does not give a damn about this position.
They don't invest much in cornerbacks, and it's shown. I mean, the biggest one was when we signed Pierre Desir to that 3-year, $22 million deal, and he was cut after 1 year. So It worked out with Xavier Rhodes. Me and you both were very hesitant on Xavier Rhodes last year.
Everybody was.
We thought, but hey, maybe this will be the change of scenery he needed. And sure enough, do I think Xavier Rhodes returns? I almost am leaning towards no.
Well, because I think, Andrew, last year, Xavier Rhodes wasn't signed until a week, 2 weeks into free agency. Ballard took his time, and he made him realize, your market's not big. And then we signed him for great value, and it worked out.
At the same time, though, his old defensive backs coach, Jonathan Gannon, was here. Now Gannon's the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. And Xavier Rhodes had a great season last year. And he's at a cornerback when you're 31 years old, it might be his last contract. He's going to want to get paid. And I just don't know if the Colts are going to want to pay that money. We'll see. I'd love to have Xavier Rhodes back because I think he was great in this Colts scheme. But if not, I'll give you some of my ones. This one is probably my top is Shaquille Griffin from the Seahawks. He's great in zone coverage. I don't think he would cost top corner money. I still think he would be probably $7 to $10 million a year, but I think he could have an impact. Akello Witherspoon from San Francisco, great athlete, long. Chris Ballard loves long cornerbacks with. And he fits well in zone. He's very good in press coverage. And then Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson's going to be a free agent.
Peterson is the name everybody's talking about, but Patrick Peterson's going to cost a pretty penny.
I feel like he's going to have a couple suitors. And if not, maybe the Colts do the same thing that they did with Xavier Rhodes just this year with Patrick Peterson. Cornerback definitely a position still the best Colts receiver could target in the draft.
Is Patrick Peterson still the best cornerback in the league?
Oh, no. Okay. I wouldn't think so. He was, if he was, he'd be getting like $15 million a year. He's not going to be anywhere near that. I think
he's still coming off big money. His last contract, he was getting paid something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's
going to be interesting to see.
Desmond Truffant. I've always liked him. He used to play for the Falcons.
I don't like his tape. He just doesn't seem like he's a very good zone corner and a guy that really is good in tackling. So
Xavier Howard is the best in the league, plain and simple. Tyler's telling us, which, by the way, an outrageous amount of interceptions last year.
He's
very good. Tyler's also very upset, thinking the Dolphins are going to let that man go. They're going to trade him. So,
oof,
poor him.
We'll see.
What about Bashad Breeland? I just know the name. I feel like he's a staple in Kansas City, but he's a free agent now. I mean, is he going to demand a lot of money? Is he worth?
I don't know if he's going to demand a lot of money. I don't know. We talk about these names, but we also got to remember, like we said at first, we started corners. The Colts just don't, unless you're Kenny Moore and you're the nickel corner in this Tampa 2 defense, which everything funnels to. They just don't spend big money on corners. So it's I don't know if that'll happen. I think Bashad Breeland is a good option though for the Colts at corner.
Okay. And these two you're gonna absolutely hate because you don't like either one of these guys. I don't like one of them particularly. Excuse me. Josh Norman and Malcolm Butler.
Josh Norman, no.
Hold on.
Absolutely not.
Hold on. Let me. Can I finish? Do you think our system could help either one of these guys like it helped Xavier Rhodes?
I don't know about Josh Norman.
Josh Norman was a one-hit wonder. He was like the man for a year, and then
Malcolm Butler. I've watched Malcolm Butler now since he's been on the Titans. I've seen him in person quite a bit, and he just doesn't impress me. I mean, the
he's
teams
a tackler.
Target him. He is a tackler, but teams target him a lot, and they have a lot of success against Malcolm Butler. So, I mean, maybe in this zone scheme, because I think Tennessee likes to play primarily man coverage. So maybe the zone scheme would help him. But honestly, I just have my doubts on Malcolm Butler. I'm just not a big fan after watching the Colts play against him and have quite a bit of success over the past couple of years.
Yep. Okay, Andrew, here we are at the 49th minute. We're starting here, and we're still on the Colts. It's a long one, boys and girls. We took 3 weeks off, and we're back, and we're covering it all. Andrew, tight end. Tell me why the hell people are talking about tight end. What am I missing? I'm missing something.
We've got Jack Doyle, the old dependable Jack Doyle. Mm-hmm. But Jack Doyle's not going to necessarily scare anybody. Mo Alley Cox has shown flashes. Well, Alec Cox is a restricted free agent. Colts will probably retain him. But again, he hasn't shown where he can fully dominate a game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this kind of circles back to Carson Wentz. And we need to get him somebody that he can really throw the ball to and could be another weapon. Jim Irsay said it earlier this offseason. We'd love to. He mentioned Tyreek Hill. He mentioned Travis Kelce in Kansas City, and how we'd like to have some playmakers like that. When you're Frank Reich and you love tight ends as much as he does, you saw when you had a great receiving tight end and a tight end that could stretch the field like Eric Ebron with Andrew Luck. While the Eric Ebron situation didn't end well in Indianapolis that year in 2018, he was a monster for us. And I think that's what the Colts want. They want to get a tight end that they can mismatch all over the field and give another option to Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz himself loves tight ends. I mean, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, those were two of his favorite targets in Philadelphia.
I think Zach Ertz could get cut.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. So there's going to be some tight ends out there that would fit very, very well within the scheme. And I'm going to talk. I'll just say it. The guy from Tennessee. Let's steal another Titan, Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is an incredible athlete. And when you watch his film, the Titans used him in a variety of different ways. But I think if you put him in a Frank Reich offense, I think Jonnu Smith can be a guy that gets 700 yards and 10 touchdowns. I really do. You already mentioned Zach Ertz. If they can't trade him, they're going to cut him. And obviously you would have to put the Colts as one of the favorites because of that connection with Frank Reich and Carson Wentz. And then another guy, kind of an X factor at tight end, Dan Arnold from the Cardinals. You don't really hear much about him, but he's another guy that good receiving tight end and someone that can block too. These guys can also block. Jonnu Smith, Zach Ertz, Dan Arnold, they can block too, as well as catch the ball. So you got to keep that in mind too. But I look for the Colts to make a move at tight end, whether it's in more so in free agency than the draft.
Hunter Henry is a name getting thrown around. Chargers, absolutely incredible tight end. Absolutely incredible at sitting on the sideline hurt. He's going to cost a lot of money for a guy who has maybe played 50% of the games he's been eligible to play, I'd guess. Somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm probably over-exaggerating a bit, but he's real good. Jared Cook, another guy that's athletic. I think Jared Cook might have been a basketball player, kind of like Mo Alley Cox, if I remember correctly. If not, but he'd be a nice compliment to him. He's getting up there in age, though. I had Jonnu on my list as well. Bob Tunyon, free agent. I don't think he leaves Aaron Rodgers. Big Bob Tunyon, though. I love that guy.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers loves that guy. I love Aaron Rodgers. And somebody just commented TB12 GOAT in our views here, and I just don't appreciate that. Listen,
we don't appreciate that.
This is a Tom Brady hating podcast, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Okay, dream free agent signing. Who is it?
See, told you I was going to forget. Curtis Samuel. That's mine.
Curtis Samuel.
I think he was incredible with Teddy Bridgewater.
Even if that means the Colts can't re-sign T.Y. Hilton.
Sorry, T.Y. Ooh. It's time, bud. I mean, I think T.Y. is important to this football team, but if I had to choose between his leadership or the skill of Curtis Samuel, sorry.
Man.
Or Bud Dupree.
Deciding. I'm gonna go an edge rusher, and I'm gonna go.
What's Bud Dupree?
It's tough because dream or realistically.
Well, it's a dream.
The dream, Shaq Barrett. Realistically, Romeo Okwara. I think Romeo Okwara is going to excel and be a monster in the Colts system, and I really hope the Colts go after him. So that would be mine. But I think edge rush needs to happen in free agency because great edge rushers don't hit the open market, and there's some great ones out there and guys with great potential. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited to see what the Colts do.
Absolutely. Okay, Andrew, let's move it along, I think. Are we done with the Colts? I mean, almost an hour.
We're done with the Colts.
All right, let's move it along to some news around the league. Some powerful transitions we got here at the Educated Fan. Some major cuts around the league. Let me pull up your list here for you guys. We're not going to comment on all these, but good luck reading this print here because it's a long one. Maybe some highlights here. Quarterback Alex Smith, Adam Humphries, Andrew, wide receiver from the Titans. I don't know why we don't talk about him in the free agency. He probably wouldn't cost a whole lot. He's a good Austin Collie. He's a good Austin Collie, Anthony Gonzalez type.
I can live without that. So with Peyton Manning, maybe, but Adam Humphries, I don't think he'd be very valuable to us. I think we can get better value and someone that can make a bigger impact. Like a John Brown that's also listed in this list.
Sure. Another guy in the division, Duke Johnson. We got Kyle Rudolph. Who's another one? Incognito.
Richie Incognito. We got to talk about this though. The Chiefs.
Emmanuel Sanders.
The Chiefs are released Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz.
Today.
Both those guys missed the Super Bowl. Yeah, today. Both those guys missed the Super Bowl, and you saw how atrocious the Chiefs' offensive line was. They're also expected to. Their center is expected to leave in free agency.
What message do you think that sends to the offensive lineman and future offensive lineman of the Kansas City Chiefs? Hey, you get hurt and miss the Super Bowl, you're fucking out of here. Because we got a Patrick Mahomes to protect, and if you can't show up, get out.
Jeez, man. It's Patrick Mahomes going to be running for his life. The Chiefs better have a plan because if they watched any of that Super Bowl, they know that their offensive line needs some work. And I don't know if they could replace the entire offensive line in one draft.
Anyone else? Carlos Dunlap is a tight end that's a free agent. Dan Bailey, kicker from the Vikings. I can't believe he had a job till now. I mean, I thought he was going to get cut mid-season. Punter, Pat McAfee, I think, calls this guy the best punter of all time. Thomas Morstead.
He does. You look at this. You look at all the cuts. You could legit make a team.
Yeah.
Just out of the cuts. You could make an entire starting lineup out of the cuts. And that's why this free agency is going to be incredible because there's going to be so many players out there with high caliber talent. And there's just the cap.
No
and the
linebackers
isn't going to be there. I'm sure there were, but nothing of high regard, I should say.
Andrew made the list.
But it's going to be crazy. I can't wait to see what happens.
All right, boys and girls. I don't know. Do we have a sound effect good enough for this? Yeah, I guess. Good for Dak Prescott.
Absolutely.
He's got to be the only man to ever make that much money after severing an ankle months before. I mean, that was a brutal injury. Cowboys and Dak Prescott, quarterback, agree to a 4-year, $160 million contract extension with $126 million guaranteed. The most, correct me if I'm wrong, the most ever guaranteed. Okay, and I believe, what was the other number? It was like the biggest signing bonus of all time. This contract is better than Patrick Mahomes' contract. In my opinion,
better than Patrick Mahomes' contract because it's shorter. He cannot be franchise tagged, so that there's a no trade clause. So good for Dak. He bet on himself. He went out there and balled out. Mm-hmm. And if the Cowboys would have just signed him last year, they would have been $33 million. Now they're going to have to pay him $40 million a year, pretty much. So good for Dak, and congrats on getting paid. I'm excited to see what he does. I really like Dak Prescott.
I mean, I don't particularly love Dak Prescott. I think he's kind of a
Dak Prescott's my dad.
Dak Prescott is Andrew's dad. True. Cardinals and defensive end J.J. Watt agree on a 2-year, $31 million deal. Thank God. J.J., thank you for leaving the AFC South. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it, and the Colts still have to play the Cardinals next year, so we get to see J.J.
one last time.
That's fine. Probably.
I'm fine with seeing JJ one last time. He's awesome. He's a great guy. He wanted out.
Love JJ Watt. Hated him when he played the Colts.
Yeah, tough to do. Raiders trade offensive tackle Trent Brown and a 7th round pick to the Patriots for a 5th round pick. Trent Brown, who used to be a Patriot, left, got paid, and now the Patriots said, "Okay, you can come back now. Less money. You made your money. Now let's go try to win another Super Bowl." Bill Belichick's probably going to win a Super Bowl next year.
So the Raiders, another team that's just getting rid of offensive linemen left and right. We already talked about Gabe Jackson, Richie Incognito, now Trent Brown.
Derek Carr's the guy.
Derek Carr.
Derek Carr's the guy, though. He can do it. It doesn't matter. He's good enough now. He doesn't need an offensive line.
I don't know. It's going to be tough. Does everybody in the AFC West just want to get rid of their offensive linemen? I mean, what if Von Miller and just gets 20 sacks because everybody in the AFC West is getting sacked 12 times a game?
I thought Von Miller, and it's not too late yet, I don't believe. I thought Von Miller was going to fall victim to this cap cut, the massacre.
Yeah, you never know. We'll see.
We got a few days left. I don't know why I keep thinking today's Friday. It's Thursday. Welcome, boys and girls. Lions and wide receiver Tyrell Williams agree on a 1-year, $6.2 million deal.
So that was a wide receiver that I saw a lot of Colts fans talking about because he would have been cheap and he was fast. He's been very injured over the last couple of years, and I think the last thing we need is an injury wide receiver. So I'm fine with him signing with the Lions.
And Texans. Whoa. You know what? Andrew always catches me when I don't read all the notes. And here we are. Texans and running back Mark Ingram agree on a 1-year, $3 million deal. I love Mark Ingram. Big trust.
This afternoon.
What's up?
Big trust. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for him.
I don't know if that's going to keep Deshaun Watson in town, but
nope,
hey.
Sure isn't. Listen, if you are for some reason a Watson or Texans fan and you're listening to this right now and you're still in denial, Deshaun Watson is not going to be a Houston Texan next year. The Houston Texans are doing everything they can in their power, but what they're doing right now is driving down the trade value that they're going to be able to get for Deshaun Watson. He's not going to be.
They better trade him before the draft.
He will not be playing. He will not be playing for the Houston Texans next year. Whether that means he sits out a year or not, he's not going to be playing.
Right.
Okay. Now, some potential rule changes, some rule change proposals for this would take effect if these were passed this year. League meetings. These would take effect this year. So some of the things that are brought up for this, Andrew, overtime rules. This
the Ravens
is probably my favorite rule proposal of all time.
It's a good one. So the Ravens are proposing a spot and choose rule for overtime, where one team will decide where the ball is going to be spotted, and the other team will decide whether they're going to go offense or defense. And it would replace the coin toss. So no more heads or tails. The coin toss will still be there, but whoever wins the coin toss can decide if they want to spot the ball or if they want to choose what side of the ball they want to be on. And then it's two different ways this is going to go. It can either be sudden death, where first team to score.
That's what it should be.
Obviously, or it's a 7.5 minute quarter.
That's Bill Belichick's idea. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
So yeah, I would rather it be sudden death. I think this is awesome. It's going to put strategy into it. You're not going to have a coin flip. You can put the ball. It's going to be. I would love for this to go through rather than it just be decided by a coin flip and then the other team drives down the field, scores, and that's the end of it. This puts it. You have to make the decision, and I think that the more decisions that the teams have to make, and the less that's left up to chance, the better.
So this rule sounds more complicated than it is. Let me give you the first graders version. Okay, a team literally says, we want it to be on that 13-yard line. And then the other team goes, we either want to be on offense and take it down that far because we think we can, or we want to be on defense because we don't think that team is going to make it. And then we're going to have good field position to go back and score. Okay? So the problem with this rule is nobody's ever heard of it, right? And the NFL, these owners and whatnot this is not going to make it through this year. This is going to be one of those rules. It's going to take a few years for people to go, okay, now I get it. Because the fact that we had to explain it twice, right? Just show that any complicated, weird rule, the NFL just doesn't adopt right away. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's super, super unlikely that this goes through, but it is getting a lot of positive attention. Sky Judge, Andrew, an eighth member of the referee crew, basically, to be in a booth and have access to all the broadcast angles. This official would have access to all replay and close-up shots to offer input from the booth throughout the game and provide pertinent info to on-field officials to help correct any clear and obvious errors of consequence. But it has to be done without disrupting the normal timing of the game. That's the key. So the point here is, you, me, the fans, we all see something completely different than what the refs do. These refs are down there running with guys 3 times their size, 3 times their weight, not only trying to ref a football game, but not die in the process. Okay. So
right.
Sky Judge basically is going to see what we see, and they're just a part of the crew, and they go, no, that wasn't pass interference. Or, hey, hello, pass interference. Different stuff like that.
Yeah, and I like this rule, and I hope if it does get implemented, it needs to be where the call is if it's an obvious mistake, an obvious miss of pass interference or of holding, then the sky judge can come in and say, hey, this was wrong, let's fix it. I don't want it to be stopping every play or on the little small, like questionable ones, then we take 5 minutes. If it's obvious, cool. If not, move it along. Nope, and I think that would help fix a lot of the egregious errors that the referees have been making.
It's just like when a few refs, like after a call or, a tight catch on the sideline, the refs gather and a few of them are like, oh, I saw this angle. I saw this angle. Okay, we're going to go with this call. Boom. That's it. Moving along. That's what it's going to be. Just this person's going to be able to see things from different views and just as quick as we see it. It's not going to be, a slow down the game kind of thing. Andrew, another one. This is a joke. I mean, this is the dumbest idea. I thought these first two rules were good. This one, terrible. Review of roughing the passer. Terrible.
I don't have much faith in this one. I really don't. I feel like if it did get passed, it's going to be the same thing as reviewing pass interference.
Exactly.
And maybe if they have the sky judge too,
it's going to slow the game down.
But it will slow the game down, and pass interference, when it would get reviewed, it almost felt like the referees took it personal and had a vendetta, because a lot of times you'd see the call and like, yeah, that's obviously pass interference, or no, that's obviously not pass interference, but the refs wouldn't make the correct call. And I just hope it wouldn't become something like that.
Yeah.
And I also don't want it to be every ticky-tack little brush of the helmet that a quarterback gets felt ends up being reviewed. I think roughing the passer is called too much and is too ticky-tacky anyway nowadays. We don't need it more in the NFL.
I agree, Andrew. And and it's not just, it can be challenged. Every interception now was there roughing the passer? Interceptions are going to start getting overturned. Games are going to start getting slowed down. There's just too much. That's ridiculous. It's too subjective. The goal of review is to try to minimize subjective points of view, and review only objective points of view as best you can. Like, was somebody in bounds? Was it a catch? Different stuff like that. Was it a fumble?
Right.
Did the ball cross the line? That kind of thing. Okay, like, did he land on him? Did that 375-pound guy drive his weight into him? That 375-pound guy, once he's off his feet, God help him. There's no. Okay, Andrew. Anything as we wrap up here? I felt like I had something else, but I think that's it. I think we're good.
I think. Like I said earlier, it's going to be a wild free agency. Well, I don't think the cuts are done. I think that there is going to be a ton of movement, and it's really teams that have cap space are going to have a chance to really make a splash, because there's going to be a lot of very good players out there that either they're going to have to backload the contracts or they're not going to sign for very much because of the cap. So if you're looking to make a run, you can be aggressive. I think the Colts probably will follow the same route that they normally do. I don't expect the Colts to be too crazy early in free agency. They kind of like to let the market set itself, and then they'll set a value in a player. And Ballard and his team are very disciplined, and they won't go over it. So, and it's gotten us into this position right now where we're solid in the cap. So I don't think that's going to change. And I trust in Chris Ballard and the Colts front office to make good moves and sign some high quality talent. So it's going to be good. It's going to be probably a little bit stressful for some Colts fans, but got to trust in Ballard. He's proved it time and time again. So it's going to be fun.
Go Colts. Yeah. So, Andrew, here, I know you can't see, but to the fans, on the screen here, we have our Twitter tag, our Instagram tag, and our Facebook location. If you want to go follow those, that'll be fun. For the podcast listeners, that's at TheEhDucatedFan, the Educated Fan. YouTube, thanks for listening. We will be back I don't know, not this Sunday because free agency won't start. So maybe next Sunday, because typically in the offseason we record on Sundays. Maybe we'll switch to Mondays. Who knows? Because I know Sundays are busy days for everybody. So we'll talk about that. We'll figure that out. Maybe we'll leave a poll on Twitter. All the reason more to go follow us. But for YouTube, we got to let you go early before we play that outro music. Maybe next week you'll have some outro music of your own. But until then, thanks for listening. And
I fucking love football, and I love you guys.
Truth. Have a good one.
Go Colts.